Alright, so today I will be reacting to the NFL Top 100 Players of 2021. So if you don't know what this list is, it is a list of the top 100 players put together from players and coaches from around the league. So it doesn't have any media members in contributing to this. It's all players, coaches, people who are actually in the sport. So people hold this to pretty high standards because you like to believe that if you play the sport, and especially for playing the sport currently, you think they would know the best, but this list does have a couple of interesting selections. So before I break it down, make sure you hit the like button and the subscribe button for some of the best NFL content out on YouTube. Also, make sure you check out my Discord link in the description below, where I will be streaming every regular live season game. I don't know, I said that funny, but every regular season game live for the 2021 season and hopefully beyond. It's free to join, but it will eventually be subscriber only, so make sure you're subscribed so you have access to that. So without further ado, let's break this down. So I will be doing number 100 to number 71, so the first 30. The NFL released all the way from number 100 to number 41. I don't want to do all of them in one video. That would be an extremely boring video. So I'm just going to stick with the first 30, and then the second 30 will come out tomorrow. So number 100 was James Robinson. I found this pretty interesting. I thought he should be higher. I mean, 1,400 yards as an undrafted rookie and over 10 touchdowns. That's really impressive considering how bad Jacksonville was this year. I think he deserves to be a little higher. He was definitely top 10 in rushing. I want to say top 5, but Robinson was just one of those great stories from around the league. I really feel like he should be higher. Definitely one of the better rookie running backs. Probably the second best rookie running back in the league behind Jonathan Taylor last year. So I really think James Robinson should have been higher on the list, but I'm happy he didn't make it. And so, yeah, he's at number 100. At 99, it's Brandon Graham, Eagles defensive end. Graham has been one of those players. He was drafted in the first round in either 2010 or 2011, but he had to fight off the label of being a bust. He finally made his first Pro Bowl in his career this year. I was super happy about that. And he has just been one of those just very consistent pass rushers, especially since 2016 when the Eagles finally went back to a 4-3. He's just been such a super consistent pass rusher. I'm really happy he made a Pro Bowl this year. I say as a Pro Bowler, that's listed a little too low. Then again, I'm pretty sure Brandon Scherff was an All-Pro, and he's at number 98. But I think Brandon Graham definitely deserves to be on this list. I would rank him a tiny bit higher than 99, though. And then I mentioned him a couple seconds ago. Brandon Scherff was number 98 on the list. I do believe he was a All-Pro this year, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so Scherff did indeed make the All-Pro team this year. And I feel like that's super low for someone to be someone 98 who was an All-Pro member. I feel like you have to be higher than that. He has just been one of the best guards in the league ever since coming into the league in 2015. Has really just been the rock on that Washington offensive line. I definitely would have ranked him a little bit higher, but yeah, 98 is just way too low for me. Number 97, we have some fullback action. Kyle Juszczyk. It's pretty cool to see a fullback cracking the NFL Top 100. Highest paid fullback in the league, obviously. Really fits in well with Kyle Shanahan's offense, that heavy power run. They do a lot of I formations, whether it's, it's normal I strong, I weak, etc., etc. So he is used heavily in that offense, and he's been very effective. He's been a Pro Bowler almost every year, I want to say. Definitely this year he's been a Pro Bowler. He's been a Pro Bowler ever since 2016. So, he's really good at what he does. It's not like he has the largest role in the league, but he's effective. And I think 97 is perfect for him, mainly because fullback's dying. But, you got to respect someone who's the best at what they do. Number 96 is Cole Beasley. He really had a breakout year last year. Not even a breakout year. He had one of his best years last year. I don't really want to call it a breakout year since he's like 30 or 31. but definitely had his best year last year. Great slot option for Josh Allen in Buffalo. I think he had about 900 yards, if I'm not mistaken. Cole Beasley did indeed have he almost had 1,000 yards. That was his career high, topping 833 in 2016. Only had 4 touchdowns, but he was the main touchdown catcher in that offense, and that was Stephon Diggs. But yeah, Cole Beasley at 96, I think that's a fair ranking. Number 95 is Trey White. He's dropped 48 spots. That's really surprising. He was 47 last year. In 2020, 2019, he was one of the best corners in the league. And he didn't play awful this year. He still made the Pro Bowl, which, you know, it's still an accomplishment, even though, like, fan voting is a little BS. He still had a good year. He still had 3 interceptions, a completion percentage allowed of 56.9%, and a passer rating allowed of 79.9. Now, granted, that's a lot higher than what he allowed last year. He allowed a passer rating of 43.3 in 2019, which is why he was an All-Pro. But White is still one of the better corners in the league. I feel like 95 is a little too low for him. I like him a little higher, but definitely deserves to be on this list. Number 94, we have Jarvis Landry dropping 33 spots. This was like the first time in a while Jarvis Landry did not make the Pro Bowl. He's like 5 Pro Bowls, which is just like really weird because he's not like he's like a super outstanding wide receiver, you know. He's good, don't get me wrong. I do think Landry is a really good receiver. But it's not like you see him in a lot of highlight reel plays or just dominating other defensive backs. He's just good. Like he just goes to work, does his job, and he does his job incredibly well. But yeah, this was the first time since 2014, which was his rookie year, where he didn't make the Pro Bowl. He's made 5 straight Pro Bowls, which is, you know, it's just surprising. He's just not someone you think as a consistent Pro Bowl player. He did have a little bit of a down year, 840 yards and 3 touchdowns. So I think 94 probably is a good spot for him here. 93 is TJ Hawkinson. Once again, another Pro Bowler. Pretty low on the list. Hawkinson had a good year. I forget if he was drafted in 19 or 18. He was drafted in 2019. So second year in the league, he already made a Pro Bowl. 723 receiving yards and 6 touchdowns. He's really good. But again, he's one of the better players at his position. I don't know. I'd like to see him a little bit higher. He's really young. He has a lot of potential. He's already one of the best at what he does. So I think 93 just a tad bit too low for him. And JC Kelsey, I think, should be a lot higher. He has been arguably, and this actually is an improvement from last year. He's arguably been the best center in the league for a while now. He's been a Pro Bowler. He's been an All-Pro. I don't think he made the All-Pro team this year, but he definitely was a Pro Bowler. He was the only Eagle on that offensive line that was able to stay healthy. I think Kelsey definitely should be in the 70s at least, because he has arguably been, and I think he is, the best center in the league for a couple years now, and he was definitely a top 3 center in the league without a doubt in 2020. Number 91 is Corey Davis, who had his first really good year last year. He had almost 1,000 receiving yards, 5 touchdowns. But a lot of that, you have to think, was that a lot of him finally having a breakout year? Or was that a lot of teams having to worry about A.J. Brown? A.J. Brown's a really good wide receiver. And that's something I like to call the Antonio Brown effect. Shout out to F-Ball Takes for that one. It's where you have a receiver on the other side of you who is just extremely dominant, that defensive coordinators don't game plan for you, and you as in the second, the wide receiver too, and you end up having really good year. The same exact thing happened to Juju Smith-Schuster in 2018. He had like 1,400 receiving yards. But that's because defensive backs and defensive coordinators were too busy worrying about Antonio Brown that they just let Juju run around out there. So I mean, I think 91's probably an appropriate ranking for Davis on this list, but just keep that in the back of your mind when you're trying to think of who is, if Davis is, like, you know, in the upper echelon of receivers in the NFL. Just keep in mind the Antonio Brown effect. All right, number 90 is Jesse Bates, a safety from Cincinnati. Bates has been one of the better safeties in the league. Him and Justin Simmons are 2 incredible young safeties. Bates last year, he played really well. He allowed the least amount of yards in his career. He had the lowest passer rating allowed in his career. He did allow 3 touchdowns, but that's fine. And he also had 3 interceptions. He's super consistent. He's super good. I think he should be rated higher on this list. Yeah, Bates has just been one of those just really solid players, and I don't know how he hasn't made a Pro Bowl yet, but Jesse Bates definitely is one of the better safeties in the league. I think 90 is just a little bit too low for him. 89, we have Tristan Wirfs. He played like an all-pro last year, let me tell you. He was a rookie, but he played so good. It was incredible what he was able to do. He's just a physical specimen. I think the Buccaneers got him at a steal. And I think 89's fine, especially since he was a rookie. He was a Super Bowl champion. I think I'm fine with 89 here. Sticking with the theme of the Bucs is Shaquille Barrett. He ranked at 32 last year, at 88 this year. Barrett was definitely a solid pass rusher this past year. He made the Pro Bowl in 2019. He also had 19.5 sacks, leading the league. But, you know, he did take a step back. He had only 8 sacks this year. Did have 16 quarterback hits, which then again was like less than half than what he had in 2019, where he had 37. He had 11 tackles for loss. He had a down year, but he had a less year than what he did in 2019, but he was still super good. I think 88 is probably a good ranking for him as an edge rusher. Definitely one of the better ones in the league. So I'm fine with this ranking of 88, but 56 spots is a huge fall, let me tell you. 87, Allen Robinson, actually up 6 spots from last year. I do believe Robinson was injured this year. He's also currently unhappy with the Bears because they are dysfunctional. But Robinson hasn't made a Pro Bowl since 2015, but he back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. He had 6 touchdowns. He is one of those better big body receivers. He's 6'2", 220. You can throw the ball up and you can trust him to come down with it. He is definitely one of the better receivers in the league. I wouldn't say top 10, definitely top 20. But Allen Robinson at 87, I guess I'm fine with it. If I remove him, I would move him up higher, but I think 87 is fine. 86 was Marshawn Lattimore, down 10 spots. He's been selected 3 Pro Bowls in his first 4 years. Was a Defensive Rookie of the Year winner. If I can pull up Marshawn Lattimore's stats, that would be awesome. But Marshawn Lattimore, he did make the Pro Bowl this year. He had 2 picks. He did have a high passer rating allowed, 94.5, and he had 7 touchdowns allowed. So definitely a down year. Was semi good at locking down. He only allowed 52.9% of his passes completed. Definitely still a solid corner in the league. But I think 86 is a fair ranking considering he allowed 7 touchdowns and a passer rating allowed of 94.5. 626 yards allowed. I think this is a fair ranking for Marshawn Lattimore. Number 85 was Zach Martin. He has been one of the better guards in the league. Wasn't he injured this year? Didn't he only play like 2 games? Or am I thinking of Tyrone Smith? Martin played 10. He was injured, but he played 10 games. So I think that definitely factored into it. 85 probably is a fair ranking. You know, he's been one of the best offensive guards in the league. You know, when you're injured, it's kind of hard to put you high on the list. Had a career low in AV, which is a Pro Football Reference stat, which is really good for offensive linemen. So I think 85, probably a good place to put him. And Leonard Williams was really good last year, and I'm really happy he made this list. Surprised it's the first time he made this list, but he was really good. He anchored that Giants defensive line. Like you can see, he led the defensive lineman in quarterback pressures, hurries, hits, and sacks. He had an outstanding year. I would put him higher. He's definitely one of the better interior defensive linemen in the league. Still super young. I would probably put him in the 60s or above. I think 84 is a little too low. Ryan Tannehill at 83 is an absolute crime. He is a top 10 quarterback in the league. He plays so well. People just don't realize it because they don't give him enough credit because of Derrick Henry. Ryan Tannehill is a really good quarterback. He's accurate. He doesn't turn the ball over, and he's efficient. Not the strongest arm in the league. He still has a strong arm, but it's not on the level of like Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes. But like I said, accurate, efficient, smart with the football, doesn't turn the ball over. What more can you want in a quarterback? I think Ryan Tannehill needs to be higher. Definitely played better than he did last year. But I do think Ryan Tannehill is definitely a top 10 quarterback in the league. Garrett Bowles here at 82. Wasn't on the list last year. He is one of the better offensive linemen in the league. He was a second team All-Pro. He did get a pretty good contract extension, 4 years, $68 million. And I forget, was he like a first? He was a first round pick. He's been consistent. He's only missed one game in his entire career. He had an AV of 9 last year, which is a career high. He's huge, 6'5", 300 pounds. He really helps out that Broncos offensive line. I maybe would have put him in the 70s, but I think 82 it's not an awful ranking for Bowles, but he definitely is one of the better offensive tackles in the league. And at 81, we have Chris Godwin. He had a huge drop off. He had a great year in 2019. But, you know, a lot of that was... Actually, it wasn't even because teams were worrying about Mike Evans. Both Mike Evans and Chris Godwin had, like, 1,300 receiving yards. I think Godwin had 1,400. But Godwin was injured this year. But he was still really a contributing part in the Bucs Super Bowl run. He had 840 yards and 7 touchdowns. He has wide receiver 1 capabilities, which is why I don't see him staying in Tampa Bay that much longer. But... Godwin, one of the better receivers in the league. I think when you consider how big of a drop-off he had from 2019-2020, plus him missing a couple games due to injury, I think 81's a fair ranking for Godwin. I agree with that. All right, time for the last 10. Adam Thielen here at number 80. Has Thielen ever made this before? I want to say he has. Thielen is a really good slot receiver. And I think people really underrate him. He was a Pro Bowler in 2017-18. He was injured in 2019. He had a good year. He had 925 receiving yards and 14 touchdowns. He was the main touchdown catcher on that team. I'm pretty sure 14 is top 5, if not top 3 in the league for receiving touchdowns. But yeah, he's a super good wide receiver. I think 80's fine. I mean, he wasn't the best receiver on his team. Justin Jefferson was really good last year. But 925 receiving yards. But you have to give him credit for 14 touchdowns. That's incredibly hard. So, maybe up in the 70s more. Probably 60s I'd rank him. Teron Armstead at 79. He's a Pro Bowler. Let me look up his stats. With offensive linemen, I don't know how good they are off the top of my head. He's made 3 straight Pro Bowls. He's had an AV of 10 the past 3 years. Super consistent. Has missed a couple of games. So I think 79 probably is a fair ranking for him. He's definitely one of the better left tackles in the league. You know, he's great at protecting Drew Brees' blind side, and he will continue to be great in protecting Taysom Hill's or Jameis Winston's blind side, but I think 79's fine. Like I said this before, if I were to move him, I'd move him up, but can't argue with 79 really. Jeffrey Simmons at 78. Yeah, he was drafted in the first round. He how good was his year? He didn't have a lot of sacks, obviously, since whatchamacallit, Titans defensive line sucked. Like, they could not get pressure. He only had 3 sacks, but he did have 14 quarterback hits. Some advanced stats. He had 21 pressures, which is good. He knocked down the quarterback 11 times. He had a couple of hurries. That Titans defensive line wasn't too good, but Simmons was one of the better defensive tackles, interior defensive linemen in the league. You know, defensive tackles normally don't get a lot of sacks unless you're Aaron Donald, who's just a freak in nature. But I think this is fine. I think 78's a fair ranking for him, especially for him just cracking the list. 77 was Quandre Diggs. I was not expecting him. I can tell you this right now. He was better than Jamal Adams in pass coverage last year. He was a Pro Bowler. He was really a Pro Bowler? Holy cow. What did I miss? I think it was more a Pro Bowl as a special teamer. He only had 27 targets. How many snaps did he play on defense? No, this is a defensive pro. I think I just completely underrated how good he was. Yeah, I completely underrated how good he was. Holy cow. But yeah, he had a good year. He wasn't good in pass coverage, but he was better than Jamal Adams. He had 92.7 passer rating allowed. A lot of that was just from a high completion percentage allowed of 66.7%. Only 324 yards allowed, which is up from 2018. We had 537. Only allowed 2 touchdowns. Doesn't miss a lot of tackles. How many tackles for loss did he had? It wasn't really that run stop and safety. Like I said, that's Jamal Adams' job. Holy cow. I realized how good he was. So Quandre Diggs, my apologies. I seriously underrated how good of a free safety you were. Another Seahawks player here, Tyler Lockett. Lockett had a 1,000-yard season, and he has been a consistent receiver. I think he is the... he's tied for the longest tenure of a quarterback receiver combo. It's like him and Wilson. Adams and Rodgers is on that list. But Lockett is one of the better slot receivers, if not the best slot receiver in the league. 1,000 yards, 10 touchdowns, 76. Fair ranking. I can agree with that ranking a lot. Had an AV of 10. But yeah, I think Tyler Lockett at 76. I mean, he was about the same year as last year. Don't know how he dropped 11 spots, but yeah. I think Lockett at 76 is a pretty good ranking. Laramie Tunsil at 75. Down 9 from last year. He was really the only bright spot on the Texans' offensive line. Was he a Pro Bowler this year? I forget. He was. He had an AV of 9. Played 14 games. I mean... He is a super consistent offensive tackle. Definitely one of the better blindside blockers in the league. So, yeah, Tunsil at 75 I feel like makes a lot of sense. I mean, he did still allow his fair share of sacks, but still super young. Still has a lot of potential. I think Laramie Tunsil at 75. It's a good ranking. James Bradbury at 74. I'm surprised he was not on the list in 2019. He had a super good year. In 2019. James Bradbury still was good this past year, but he was super good in 2019, which is why he got a bag in free agency. Yeah, he was a little worse this year, but he did make a Pro Bowl. He allowed a higher completion percentage than in 2019, had more touchdowns allowed than in 2019, did have a higher passer rating allowed, but they were still good numbers. He allowed 61.5% of his passes. He allowed less yards with 580. He allowed 4 touchdowns, which is borderline okay. But he also had an 80.8 pass rating allowed, which is good. 74 for James Bradbury, one of the better lockdown corners in the league. I'm fine with it. I like it. Trey Hendrickson, 73. He had a breakout year. A lot of his sacks were cleanup sacks. But, I mean, 13.5 sacks is still extremely impressive. It's just hard to argue with that. He also had 11 quarterback knockdowns. He had 33 pressures, 12 tackles for loss, 25 quarterback hits. 73, I can get down with it. I think that's fine. And he only played 53% of snaps in 20. That's so surprising. Only played 53% of the snaps in 2020. And he had 13.5 sacks. Actually, I did not realize that. I think that makes it more impressive. But yeah, 73. I can get with that. Michael Thomas has 72. I did not think he should make the list. He was injured last year. He didn't have a receiving touchdown. I know he's one of the better wide receivers in the league. He is a top 4 wide receiver in the league when he's healthy. But when you miss 75, no, he didn't miss 75% of the year. But when you miss a good chunk of the year, it's just hard for me to say that you should be on this list. Michael Thomas played 7 games. He had 438 receiving yards and 0 touchdowns. I can't put him on the list like that. His yards per reception was a career low. Yards per game was also a career low. So it's not even like when he was healthy, he was doing good. He was playing average when he was healthy. This was his worst year of his career. A lot of that had to do with him being injured. But like, I don't know how you can put him on the list when he just, like, he wasn't good I mean, he wasn't good because of injury last year, but he just wasn't good. And rounding off, Baker Mayfield at 71. I remember me and my one friend were talking, and he was like, I just don't think Baker's it, man. And then he had that game against the Bengals where he was nearly perfect from the second quarter on, throwing 5 touchdowns. He was really good last year. I'm a big fan of Baker Mayfield. He has that gunslinger mentality. He actually had a career low in yards, but he calmed down on the turnovers, had a 1.6 interception percentage, which is a career best in passer rating, second career best in completion percentage, but he was also accurate. 74.8% of his throws were on target. Only 18.8% of his throws were bad. He's good. I think Baker Mayfield at 71. I'd put Tannehill over him, though. I'm not going to lie. I would put Tannehill over him, but I think Baker Mayfield at 71. It's a good ranking. I think Baker Mayfield definitely is one of the better quarterbacks in the league. Top 15, probably top 13. So I like that ranking. All right. Thank you all for watching this video. Make sure you hit the like button and the subscribe button so you never miss any of the awesome content I post. I'm posting one video every weekday in the month of August, so make sure you're subscribed so you never miss any of it. Also, make sure you check out the Discord link in the description below. Going to be live streaming every regular season game in 2021. I'm also want to build a nice community there, so hopefully you can be a part of that. Also, make sure you check out my Instagram, my TikTok, and my Twitter. I've been posting there a little bit more. Actually, I have to post to TikTok more. I haven't been doing that a lot. But I have been posting to all three a little bit more. And yeah, if you want more content from me, go follow those. So once again, thank you all for watching. And I hope you all have a fantastic day.